Janice.
Pandami Sayadaw, may we seek Sayadaw's permission to start the talk?
Hello?
Yes. May we seek Sayadaw's permission to start the talk? Sayadaw, are you able to hear us?
Mhm.
Sayadaw, are you able to hear us?
Hello?
Sayadaw, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi, Sayadaw.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Sayadaw. May we seek Sayadaw's permission to start the talk?
Okay.
Thank you, Sayadaw. Vandami Sayadaw, and good evening, everyone. Good morning to everyone in the West Hemisphere. Welcome to today's lesson 69 on Visuddhimagga, Patisambhidamagga, and commentaries. I'm Janice Ong. I'm the meeting co-host who will be helping Sayadaw and everyone in today's session. May we respectfully invite Sayadaw to start the teaching, and may we invite the interpreter Bantes to start the translation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
We will pay homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Okay, today we have to continue previous topic, talking about Bhanganyana. Actually, in the Bhanganyana, there are many chapters we have to explain. Then they are mentioned something about Adipanya Vipassana, superior insight. So since we have already mentioned many things about Vipassana before, now we are starting Adipanya Vipassana, superior insight, because we are talking about Bhanganyana. Last week, we have already mentioned many things about Paṭivipassana. So in this part, we also have already mentioned Namarupa is also anicca, the inside knowledge is also anicca, and so on. So we have to contemplate both Namarupas and inside knowledge. So we can also say continuations of this chapter. We also have to talk about superior insight, Adipanya Vipassana. The first one is Aramana Patisambhidamagga, insight into the object by way of reflection. Mostly Patisambhidamagga we translate as a reflection, or recollection also possible. Having known the conditioned objects, sankhara aramana, such as material phenomena, rupa dhamma, one directs attention and contemplates what's inside the dissolution bhanga of that conditioned object. So that means with Aramana Patisambhidamagga, we also have to do two different things. Sankhara also anicca, inside knowledge also anicca. We have to contemplate both. Then we have number 2, talking about Bhanganupassana jnana, the knowledge, contemplation of dissolution. 2. The next one. So we also say Bhanganupassana jnana. Thereafter, one again contemplate with insight the dissolution of insight consciousness itself, the very mind that contemplates and the dissolution of those conditioned phenomena. So here we also have to talk about Bhanganupassana. Bhanganupassana means we just emphasize on direction state of Namarubats. Actually, we have already mentioned many things about Rupasadaka and Arupasadaka, especially in Arupasadaka. We also have already mentioned many different steps of inside knowledge. For example, Namarupa also anicca. The first inside knowledge also anicca. The second knowledge also anicca. Like this, we have to do many steps. But in the case of Bhanganupasana, it can be only one more step, as we have mentioned before. Then 3, Sunyata-nupasana, contemplation of voidness. Finally, one reflects on insight about all conditioned phenomena as void, sunyata, perceiving them as devoid of self, in the mode of the stealing of self-view. So here we have many different definitions of sunyata we have mentioned before. Actually, sunyata is also one of the name of anatta. Sunyata also can be the name of nibbana. When we study sutta, there are many different definitions of sunyata, even in the Pali Canon. For example, we have one of the sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. They are mentioned when we can discern 4 elements clearly. In this body, we just know 4 elements. We don't know any other man or woman or any living being. We just know as a 4 elements. We can also understand as sunyata. So as we have mentioned before, we have sunyata nupasana. That means we have to contemplate as anatta. Then we also have sunyata nibbana. That's also nibbana. Anyway, now here in this point, we should talk about anatta. We can know the nature of anatta very clearly. Then we don't have any view of self, atta. We can also say self-view atta deity. This is also called sunyata nupasana jnana. Okay, we have to continue talking about 7 contemplation. We have already mentioned before also. So the first one, anicca, dukkha, anatta, the first 3 is very clear already. So we have already mentioned 10 different contemplations of anicca, impermanence, when we are talking about potito, anicca, do, jala, do, something like that, right? But similarly, dukkha nupasana, contemplation of suffering. We have already mentioned 25 different contemplations of dukkha. Then not only that, we have already mentioned anatta, nupasana, contemplation of non-self. Also, 5 different definitions, 5 different contemplations. They are also mentioned many different things about atta at that time. So these 3 are very common in vipassana. Now, when we are going to talk about nibbida nupasana, contemplation of disenchantment. Actually, later we have to explain that one again in the nibbida jnana, one of the inside knowledge. Viraga nupasana, contemplation of distraction. We can also say a kind of aberration. We have already mentioned that one before also. Then nirodha nupasana, contemplation of cessation. Okay, here when we talk about cessation, you may remember we have already mentioned 2 different types of cessation. Ubaravaya. Ubaravaya means we just perish for a short time. After that, they will arise again. This is called momentary cessation. Now that's it. Complete cessation. That means when we attain arhatship, after passing away, no more arising. This is called complete cessation. This is also called nirodha nupasana. Now, 7 Parisaṅga nupasana, contemplation of relinquishment. Actually, we have already mentioned many things about this one also before, different types of relinquishment. As we have mentioned, for example, temporarily, or substitution, or operation. We can also understand by path and fruition knowledge, different types of relinquishment. So these are 7 contemplations, because we have to review these things again here in this chapter. So when we can do all the things, this means this is a superior inside knowledge, higher inside knowledge. Okay, now again, we have to talk about seven contemplation as some simile here. Just as one would look upon a bubble, just as one would look upon a mirage, even so, one look upon the words in this way, the king of death does not see him. So this is actually stanza from Dhammapada. We can also find this quotation in Visuddhimagga, also Patisambhidamagga commentary. So sometimes we may see mirage on the way, especially when sun shining very bright, we can see the mirage. It can be like a water, but when we really go there, it's not really water, just showing like a water, not truth. See, like he also mentioned like a bubble. Of course, when heavily rain, we can also see bubble on the ground. It will appear and pass away because struck by many rainwater, it cannot last long. So similarly, if we can see these words, okay, this means this aggregate, this body, the king of death does not see him. Okay, that means he will attain path and fruition knowledge, no more death. That's why we call cannot death, cannot see him. But in Dhammapada or in Visuddhimagga, right, we can also say similar thing, right? The main thing is that after apprenticeship, they may not be reborn and they may not die. That's why they cannot be seen by king of death. So that means they attain Nibbana. So there are also many other simile in this part, according to Visuddhimagga, also according to Patisambhidamagga, or many other simile. Okay, now the first simile is a weak clay pot. Dubala Bhajanubama. Dubala means very weak. Okay, we may have many different types of clay pots, but you may have to see, but you may not know how strong or how weak. Of course, if you are very familiar with this kind of pot, when you hit with your small finger, you can know is it strong or not, because different sound. Okay, this is the way we test clay pot. So sometimes clay pot is a very thin layer, very thin. Another thing is they don't bake properly. We can say this is a weak clay pot. But just as a damp and a fragile clay vessel already crack, easily breaks apart, so too this simile illustrates the nature of conditioned phenomena. Sankhara Dhamma as being inherently subject to decay and destruction. So originally, the clay pot is very weak. It also has cracks. Then when we have seen the cracks, it's very easy to break apart. So in this body, the same. This body is already weak. So every single moment is a rising apparition. Less than a second, we can say nanoseconds. In every nanosecond, a rising apparition of Namarupas. We can say that like a crash. Then now we are going to see only apparition stage. Right? We are talking about Paññāṇa, only apparition stage. Then this is also one of the simile mentioned in the text. Then we also have another simile, number 2. Then mention simile of scattered fine dust. Vipakiriya mana sukumara rajubama. Just as delicate dust, when blown, scattered and dispersed in all directions, so too, this simile illustrates the nature of conditioned phenomena as not being bound together, but rather dispersing and disintegrating. So this is also a very clear example. You may have seen scattering dust. But like in Singapore, you cannot see dust very easily. But when you go to the beach, you may be able to see. But many other countries, like for example, like China, they may have sometimes like a sun storm, right? They can see dust in the sky, all over the skies. Anyway, the main thing is this body also made of particles, like scattering dust, fine dust. So they are not solid. There is no solidity, only dispersion, scattering here and there. So in the case of the natural dust, when blown by the winds, it can be scattering. But in the case of this body, it's natural, not blown by the winds. Naturally, there's a particles. Also, rise and apparition very rapidly. This is the nature of this body. So we don't need to say many other things more than that. This is also one more thing. We are talking about Paṭipadāñāṇa in the apparition stage. We just see only apparition stage of materialities, mentalities. Okay, now we have the third example. The simile of sesame seeds being pounded. Yabitya mana tilubama. Actually, we can also say just the sesame seeds when roasted in a pan. We cannot say pounded like a bursting, right? Burst moment after moment, so too. This simile illustrates the momentary nature of conditions of phenomena which are subject to destruction at every instant. Okay, here we should elaborate a few more things about roasted sesame seeds. Then many of housewives may have that kind of experience. When you roast sesame seeds, a different, for example, some part of pan will be very thick layer of sesame seeds. They cannot pass easily, right? When very thin layer of sesame seeds in some corner, they will burst very easily. So you may have already seen when they burst, they also jump and scatter. So similarly, we also have momentary rise and apparition of namarupas. So here also mentioned destruction at every instant. Destruction means changing. Here we just talk about perishing stage. So that's why we just say destruction. So this is how we can understand and how we can reflect according to Paṭipadāñāṇa. So there are many things about Paṭipadāñāṇa we have to explain. Then we also have to continue talking about the benefit of Paṭipadāñāṇa. How can we understand the benefit of Paṭipadāñāṇa? Okay, the next one. In this stage, the contemplation of dissolution and the following are the 8 benefits and advantages. So we should know the benefit and the advantages of Paṭipadāñāṇa. So sometimes people talk about the inside knowledge, they have very strong inside knowledge and this and that and many other things, right? But in reality, there's the proof of inside knowledges. In every single inside knowledges, there is the way to do. Not only that, there's the effect. Because we can also say the benefit. So since we have mentioned before, for example, Visuddhi, we can also understand as Namarupa Parichita, descending Namarupas. At that time, we can overcome identity views. But now here, we are talking about Paṭipadāñāṇa, mature inside knowledge already. But before mature rise and apparition knowledge, then it will be different. condition. Now, after present, mature present liberation knowledge, we can also say here Banganyana is mature insight knowledge. Okay, now here one. The abandonment of wrong view of eternity, called substantivity, the view of eternalism. So this is also one of the benefits. Actually, this is very simple because we have already known Naruba. We already know only liberation stage. We cannot say eternalism anymore, right? Very clear already. Okay, two. The relinquishment of attachment and clinging to life. Look at this one. Then, okay, in our community, we also have many people. Then they were determined, right? I will not stop meditating until I gain path and fruition knowledge. You may also have known that kind of things, even the Bodhisattva. Final decision, the last day, after scattering grass under the Bodhi tree, he also determined, as long as I cannot attain Buddhahood, I will not change my bodhisattva. He determined like this, right? So there are many, many similar cases at the time of the Buddha. Sambiku, as long as I cannot attain arhatship, I will not go for food or something. You may have known many, many stories like that. Why they have that kind of decision? If they cannot attain anything, they don't go for Bindapada, they will feel hungry, even they can pass away. Why? Actually, they may have that kind of insight knowledge up to Panganyana. So this mature insight knowledge, within a few seconds, they can attain path and fruition knowledge. If their insight knowledge becomes stronger. That's when they do that kind of things. Then you may also have already known a group of bhikkhus climb up the mountain, and also they use a ladder to climb up on the top of the mountain. When they all of them reach at the top of the mountain, they remove the ladder. Then they just determine, okay, now as long as we cannot attain arhatship, we're not go down. They have that kind of determination. Why they had to do like this? Of course, they believe their inside knowledge. Even they don't have attachment to their life. So that means they have very mature inside knowledge. You may have known that story, right? Maybe next day, one of the bhikkhu attain arhatship. He also attains second power. He go for Bindabada. He share food with his Dhamma friends. They don't accept. In our agreement, we don't have sharing food. We don't have that kind of agreement. If you can attain arhatship, attaining second power, we can go for Bindabada, share food. We don't have that kind of agreement. Even they don't accept the food. Why they have that kind of knowledge? So that's why sometimes people say, I don't have any appetite to eat. It doesn't mean like this, right? So sometimes there are some, actually a few years ago, one bhikkhu also asked me, he don't want to eat. Although he dying, he will meditate. But when one of my Dhamma friends report me, Dante, don't take his wife seriously because his mind is not so good. That means he has mental disorder. Right? So sometimes people have this kind of problem. They think they are very high quality. They determine, but actually they don't have that kind of quality. But here in this case, they have very strong inside knowledge. That is why they don't have attachment to their life anymore. Be careful with this one, right? So sometimes you don't have appetite, it doesn't mean you have this kind of inside knowledge. Okay, now another one, 3. The development of vigorous efforts in meditation at all time, both by day and by night. This one is very clear. So that means we may have very strong efforts, but at the same time, we may have very vigorous efforts. That means we may have very strong effort. We may have very vigorous 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 effort. We may have then we can practice day or night, non-stop practice. Okay, you may have already know many stories like that at the time of the Buddha. There are some bhikkhus, they meditate day and night, non-stop. Okay, for example, Venerable Ananda, the last day, before attaining arhatship, whole night he was meditating. So we may have different conditions. For example, the first watch of the night, was he sitting meditation, maybe standing meditation? And the middle watch of the night, he do only walking meditation. So he thought, oh, I have more efforts, less concentration. Maybe I should rest a little bit more. He just keep working with vipassana. You have already known, before he lying down, his leg also up from the floor. His head didn't reach to the pillow. At the moment he attained arhatship. Because the main thing is he meditated all day long, all night long. That is the condition of vipassana. And now we have the next one, number 4. Establishment of a pure and blameless livelihood. Be careful with this one. So sometimes they talk about very high quality of insight knowledge, but their livelihood is not very pure. In this case, we can understand they don't have, they haven't achieved Paṭipadāñāṇa yet. They haven't reached Paṭipadāñāṇa yet. That is why they have this kind of problem. So many places, even a few years ago, there's one Myanmar layman. He was temporarily ordained in Myanmar New Year in power. Then when I teach him Anapanasati, he refused. He refused me. He just wants to practice his own vipassana. He say, I have a habit of vipassana, so I should practice vipassana more. I say, okay, vipassana is not that important for you now. You may need more concentration. But in his point of view, he has attained up to Sankarupaka. But his livelihood is gambling. So if I reveal his livelihood, he may feel shame. That's why I just keep quiet. Just talk him wisely. Okay, now forget about all things you have already learned before. Just do simple way. If you can improve, you can practice vipassana. Because there are many people, they learn many different traditions. Even they thought they have attained some higher insight knowledge, like Sankarupaka or Pankanyana or Bayanyana or Arinevanyana or any high knowledge. But their livelihood is not very pure. In this case, it's not truth. So their livelihood must be pure. Then 5, the removal of cares and anxieties in matter great and small. Okay, this is the worldly cares. So there will be many worldly cares, right? So simple, okay, we can say number 4 and number 5, right? Okay, number 4, of course, we don't have even mind. That's why we have pure livelihood. Okay, now number 5. If we say anxiety, okay, that means we have a dosa, right? Even extra care, this is also one of the problem. Attachment, right? The main thing is they have very strong sensual urgency at that time. Be careful with that one, right? Very strong sensual urgency. This is number 5. Since they have very strong sensual urgency, they don't care any worldly profit. They don't worry about worldly profit. Although it may have a big gain or big profit, or it can be minor profit. Whatever profit or whatever things they have, they don't care. So one more thing, when we have very strong sense of urgency, we also have already mentioned before, number 3 also mentioned, right? Diligent. So number 5, this is also one of the cause of diligent. When we have very strong effort, what that mean? When we have very strong sense of urgency, samvega, we may have very strong effort naturally, like a bodhisattva. He felt sense of urgency when seeing an old man, a sick man, also a dead body. He had never seen before, but he felt very strong sense of urgency. That is why when he renounced the world in the forest, 6 years long, he is very diligent. This means effort comes from sense of urgency. Okay, now the next one, number 6, elimination of fear and dread. So one more thing here. So in the case of fear and dread, right? Here we have many different conditions. So sometimes we love ourselves too much, right? We have too much attachment, right? So here I already mentioned number 2. So sometimes we also have a strong attachment to somebody. That is fine. Although we encounter some difficulty or we worry about losing, we are scared of losing something. But here in the case of number 6, we don't have attachment to ourselves too much. That is fine. Whatever problem, then they may not have any fear or dread. This is also one of the quality of Paññāṇa. Then 7, the attainment of patience and delight in the wholesome virtues. This is also one of the things. Since we have already know the nature of anicca very clearly, that's why we have very strong patience. Not only that, we may have very strong delight in wholesome deeds or wholesome virtues. So this is also one of the quality. Our mind will incline to wholesome deeds most of the time. We may have very strong patience, forbearance. Okay, as you have learned meditation before, when you have been to meditation center, you have already experienced you become short-tempered sometimes. Especially when your mind becomes very calm and quiet, when you start experiencing tranquility, your sense become very sharp. Although they make very soft noise, it can affect your concentration. You can get angry very easily. Right? This is very beginning state of samatha, very beginning state of concentration. Gradually, when we have very strong concentration, we don't worry about anything. But here in the case of Paññāṇa, we have already experienced the nature of anicca, impermanent. That is why we have very strong patience. Then since we have already know all the things are also impermanent, right? We also have very strong delight in virtues, because they say wholesome deeds. This is also one of the quality. Okay, now number 8, the last one. So number 8 will mention something about ability to suppress or overcome delight in sensual pleasure, together with abandonment of attachment to bodily enjoyment, while finding no satisfaction in the forest dwelling or more external ascetic practice, but only in meditation. Okay, this is also one of the things. So that means we can also say like a arati in Pali. Arati means not delighting in forest monastery, right? Then we can also overcome that kind of things. Another thing is like a assertive practice. So sometimes we cannot delight in it, but here in this case, this is the okay. And we can also overcome this kind of non-delight already in Pali. Another thing is like delighting in sensual pleasure. So we can also overcome delighting in sensual pleasure. This is one of the quality of Vanganyana. Okay, these are the quality of Vanganyana. So that means, how can we know that we have attained Vanganyana? How can we know that we have achieved Vanganyana? See, these are the quality, the benefits, the advantages of Vanganyana. After experiencing all of these 8, we can understand we have achieved Vanganyana. So this is also one of the part we have to know. Okay, now we have to move the next one. Vanganyana is advanced stage of Vipassana insight. Okay. He also mentioned, for a man whose head is wrapped in burning reeds, the most urgent task is to extinguish the fire that blazed upon his head. Yet, even more urgent than that task is the work of extinguishing the red hair fire of entity view Sakaya Ditti. We can find this statement in many parts of Buddha teaching. So people also have already known this one, right? They be overcoming or eradicating identity view is more important than extinguishing fire burning on the head. I don't know in other country, in Myanmar, this statement is very common. Many of teachers also say the same things. Anyway, we have to understand many different things in this part. Since we have already mentioned many different types of practice before, in the case of Vanganyana, we can also can use Satipatthana, as we have mentioned before. We can also can use aggregate method. Actually, not only that, in Pausaro manual, Nibbana Gamini Paripada, they also mention Pochituka of Anapanasati. Anapanasati, we have 4 different parts, right? The first 4, the second 4, the third 4, the last 4, like this, right? We have 4 altogether 16 different steps of Anapanasati. Pausaro also mentioned all these steps in his books, especially Nibbana Gamini Paripada, big volume. But anyway, in the case of Vanganyana, there are many things we can do. So as we have mentioned before, we can also do Satipatthana, we can also do many other types of Vipassana. As mentioned, for example, dependent origination, only the factors, not cause and effect relationship, as we have mentioned before. Not only that, we also have already mentioned walking as a walking, standing as a standing, all the things. We can also do the same here. We can practice all different types of Vipassana. After that, we have to start talking about the next part of Vipassana, Vayāñāna, the knowledge of fear. Okay, here I should elaborate a few more things about Vayāñāna. The next one. Vayāñāna means, you can say, knowledge of fear, but we can also understand many other things about Vaya. In Pali, especially in Patisambhidamagga, it mentions Vayatupatthana Jnana. Vayatupatthana. Vayaupathana. That means the fear will arise naturally. You may have already known the Pali word Paṭipadāñāṇadassanavisuddhi, manifestation. It becomes manifest. That means it will appear in meditator's mind. So here I will also mention how a timid man wishing only to live safely and at ease, lions, tigers, leopards, hyenas, ogres, demons, wild bulls, fierce dogs, furious elephant, venomous serpent, thunderbolts, cemeteries, butterflies, blazing bit of fire appears to be fearful and terrifying. Here we just list out all the fearful things. Okay, for example, when we are going to face a lion, of course will be fear. Similarly, tiger. You can also know all the animals in the list. So the main thing is fear. Okay, one more thing. We have many different types of fear according to Bodhi text. The first one is when seeing fearful objects, we may have fear. For example, if we are scared of elephants, of course, it's a fearful object for us. Similarly, fearful sounds, fearful smell, fearful sensation, anything. Because of object, fearful object, when we experience or see, hear, smell, or anything, we may have fear. This is the normal. This is not wholesome. It cannot dosa. Another thing is mind-made fear. In Pali, we call Chidudarasa Baya. Mind-made fear means, for example, in the dark rooms, when we see a sudden sound, then we may also think this is a ghost or this is a human being. We don't know. That we may scare. We may have fear. Okay, you may have, for your clear understanding, you may have already know King Ajatasattu, the first visit to the Buddha, arranged by 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐀. Bhikkhu or bhikkhus are living in the 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐀. When they are closer and closer to the monastery, Ajatasattu scared. He became scary because of quietness. Although 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 said thousands of bhikkhu meditating there or living there, because of quiet, he cannot believe. Oh, 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, we are childhood friends. You are not cheating me, right? He's scared because of quietness. If there's thousands of people, it must be noisy, but now quiet. It makes his mind scary. This is also called mind-made fear. Chidudarasa. So another thing is Sahotababaya. We can say moral fear. This is a wholesome. Jnanabaya. This is also wholesome. Now here we are talking about Baya Jnana, the knowledge of fear. This must be wholesome. Although we give simile of lion, tiger, and all the fearful things, but it's not like the same. Just simile. Now another example. A mother's 3 sons are sentenced to death. When the eldest is already executed, the second is in the process of being executed. She realized the youngest will be inevitably face the same fate. Therefore, she abandons attachment and expectation towards him. This is just an example. So similarly, we may not expect anything from this body, right? So we have the next part mentioned. In the same way, a meditator perceives. The next slide. The next part. The next slide. In the same way, a meditator perceives. Slideshow change. Why is it changing like this?
Sayadaw, the slide is in the same way, correct?
Yeah, okay, this one, sure. This one. Okay.
Yeah.
In the same way, the meditator perceives. the past information has already ended. This is similar to older sun, right? Then the present formation as in the process of ending. This is it, second sun. And thus, abandon attachment to the future formation, knowing they too must end. This is the younger son going to be exuded. So these are the simile of previous one, the mother's example. Okay, we have to move to the next one. Bhayanyana, knowledge of fear. A barren woman lost 9 children. Okay, next one.
Sayadaw, I'm in that slide. A barren woman loses
Okay.
9 children. Yeah.
Okay. Then see the tenth dying in her arms, and realize the unborn one in her womb will also perish. In the same way, the meditator see the past formations as ended, the present formations as perishing, then abandon hope for future formations, knowing they too must cease. This is one of the things. Here also mentioned not fear, just reflection. This is also one of the things we have to understand. Sometimes we say fear, but actually this is not fear produced by dosa. So under the name of dosa, I have already mentioned many times, there are many, many different types of dosa. For example, fear, worry, lamentation, despair, depression, all of them are called dosa. Mostly when we say dosa, we understand anger and hatred as a dosa, right? Actually, dosa has very wide meanings. But here, if we say fear, it can be dosa. I already mentioned 4 different types of fear. For example, seeing fearful objects, dosa. Another thing is mind-made fear, also dosa. So here, sometimes, okay, even in your meditation, your mind becomes very quiet. Then when your mind also inclined to quietness too much, you may have fear naturally. This is not Vajrayana. Because of quietness, you become scared. This is not Vajrayana. So here in this case, it's just reflection. So that means in your mind, you just recall or reflect all the past, present, and future namarupas. This is called Vajrayana. So we have to talk about a few things about present, past, future. So here, when we talk about present, okay, if you recall many topics in the past, we have already mentioned different types of present moments. Okay, for your understanding, I have to say it again. For example, Paṭipadāñāṇadassanavisuddhi. Paṭipadāñāṇadassanavisuddhi means durational present, comes from Purification to Chuti. That means rebirth to death. One life also called Paṭipadāñāṇa. So here, in the case of Vajrayana, if we say present, it's not Paṭipadāñāṇa. We already mentioned Paṭipadāñāṇa. So that means in the mental process, there are many mind moments. Every single mind moment, there's a arising state, theta state, perishing stage. It's also very short, right? In the case of Vajrayana, ideally it must be Santati Paṭipadāñāṇa at the least. Okay, we can start from Santati Paṭipadāñāṇa in the case of Vajrayana. So that means moment. That means we can understand as a mental process. Then we can also understand as a fear, because we call it as a fear. This is called Vajrayana. So that means, okay, when we are going to understand Nama Rupas and Anicca Dukkha Anatta clearly, of course we have to do Paṭipadāñāṇa, right? We have to know momentary arising and perishing. Since we have already mentioned Paṅgāñāṇa before, we have to know patishan stage. Here also we have to understand patishan state of every single mind moment in the process. Okay, the main thing is when our inside knowledge become more powerful than Paṅgāñāṇa, we can experience Payanāna. Actually, there are many other things we have to explain. It will be too long. Okay, we should move the next one. Something about fear, Paṭipadāñāṇa. So Paṭipadāñāṇa arises when meditator reflects that all formations, past, present, future, inevitably cease like a man who's standing safely at the city gate, see 3 blazing pits of fire, and knows that anyone who falls into them must suffer greatly. The yogi perceives the fearful nature of conditions and existence. This is just an example. So this is also the nature of Paṅgāñāṇa. So that means when we see all the fearful things like that, of course, we have to know anicca dukkha anatta also, right? So the main thing is here mentioned present past future, all types of namarupas, aggregates, anything. They are also similar to bits of fire, blazing fire. Actually, we also know momentary rising and patishan, especially here, patishan stage, right? We just keep knowing patishan stage. Then we may also know this is fearful, past also like a fire, blazing fire. Present also like a blazing fire. Future also like a blazing fire. This is the nature of Payanāna. Okay, now we have to move the next one. Okay. They are mentioned some more example. Paṭipadāñāṇa is like a man seeing 3 stakes, woods, iron, and gold. And he is not afraid of himself, but knows anyone who falls on them will suffer. In the same way, the yogi without personal fear reflects wisely the past, present, and future formations will inevitably cease. That sees the fearful nature of conditions existences. Here are 3 stakes made of wood, iron, and gold. That means that's the example. Ancient time, when the king is going to execute somebody, they will use that kind of stick, right? In the cross. After that, of course, they were stuck with this kind of stake, right? And then they will be executed there. So that means whether this is made of wood or iron or gold, of course, these are understandable. If we ask somebody, which one do you prefer? One of these 3. Of course, all of these 3 are terrible. So anyway, the main thing is they see them as a fearful object. This is the main thing we have to understand. Okay, now here we have to talk about ground for fears. So fear of what? It will be very messy, right? But here we have to know the ground for fear. The next one. As we already mentioned, anicca dukkha anatta mentioned before. Here we also have to know ground for fear. What's it really called? Ground for fear. The next one. Okay. Here, 4 modes of birth. So egg-born beings. This is also called gati. In Pali, we call gati. Then again, we also have maybe here Jalabhuja yoni. Then one born beings. Satyadita yoni, Madhya born beings. Apapadika yoni, simultaneous born beings. Of course, you can know all of them very clearly, very easily. And for example, bats come from eggs, right? Similarly, like a fish, most of the fish come from eggs. Frog come from eggs. Many animals come from eggs also, right? Jalabuja yoni, one born beings, we human beings come from ones. Similarly, like a cow, bull, elephants, many animals also one born. Sanjitaja, moisture born beings. They come from moisture. Some kind of insect or bacteria, right? Come from moisture. Apapadika, simultaneous born beings. This is like a devas, brahmas. They are simultaneous born beings. So although they are born in different conditions, but they are the ground for fear. That means meditator may have fear of all these types of rebirths. Okay, now we have to talk about many other things, especially about next group. Ground for fear is one, five destination, gati. Okay, so let me hear yoni, gati, vijnana titi. Actually, there are many, right? Sadavasa, it will mention all the things. So five gatis, Deva gati, realms of devas. Very clear already. I don't need to explain the one. Okay, one more thing here. Under the name of Deva gati, they also cover Brahma words. Manusa gati, human realms. Very clear already. We are human beings. Nirya gati, hell realms. Also clear already. Peta gati, realms of hungry ghost. Very clear already. Tirichana gati, animal realms. So these are ground for fear. So that means in every life, as a human being or divine being, anybody, anything, they are fearful. Actually, the Buddha himself said, even very short lifespans of life also not praiseworthy. Even very high-ranking birds like a Brahma also not praiseworthy. Although they were born as a Brahma, but they can be reborn as a human being, they can be reborn as animals, they can be reborn as hell beings, because they don't have any guarantee to maintain their life until we can take part in future knowledge. Okay, now we have to move to the next group. 7 station of consciousness, vijnana titi. Okay, here I have to elaborate a little bit more because this part will be the last part for today's Dhamma talk. Okay, one more thing here. The first one, being different in body and in perceptions. Okay, this is very simple. For example, here we have human beings. We also have divine beings. We have different types of patisambhidamagga minds, different consciousness. So you may have already known, right? They may have different 2 roots, 3 roots. Even in human, we also have unrooted ahituka being also, right? Different patisambhidamagga. Not only that, they also have different body, different appearance. That's why here we can say different body. We can also understand different aggregates sometimes, right? But here we can say different body. Another thing is different patisambhidamagga mind moment. In Pali, we call Nanada Gaya, Nanada Sanyi. 2, being different in body, but the same in perception. So Nanata Gaya, Ekata Sanyi. This is past Brahma words. That means first jhana Brahma runs. Also, fourfold states. So in their rounds, even Brahma words, they may have different body. In the health and fourfold states, they may have different bodies. So in the Brahma world also, the first Brahma words, they have the first jhana as a Bodhisattva, right? Only first jhana. In the hell or in the fourfold states, they are only unrooted Bodhisattva, the same Bodhisattva. Although they have different appearance of body, that's why they are called Ekattagaya, Nandadagaya, Ekattasanyi. Now 3, being the same in body, but different in perception. So here we should talk about second jhana Brahma words. So when you practice second jhana, according to Pali traditions, there will be 2 different conditions according to 5-fold method. So some of the meditators, they will remove Vitaka, the first step, enter jhana, right? Then some of them can remove both Vitaka and Vichara together. So if they can remove only Vitaka, of course, Vichara, Pitisukha, Ekaggata can be second jhana. If they can remove Vitaka, Vichara together, Pitisukha, Ekaggata will be the second jhana. It depends on different practice. That's why they have different rebalancing consciousness. That's why they have different perceptions, but they have the same body. But they are the same as a second material around Brahma, the same body, right? But they have different perception. That different Bodhisattva consciousness. Okay, now 4. We have beings, stay in body, and perception. So this means it comes from Tatiya jhana, right? Also we have Uhapala, then Sudavasa. All these have the same position, the same body, also the same Bodhisattva. They are called the same body and the same perception. So for about Asanya Satta, it's very clear already. They have only, right, Rupa, no more Nama. This also Asanya Satta realms, okay? Similarly, infinite space, Akasanyana, those also material, immaterial, the first immaterial Brahma words. This one is very clear. We don't need to talk about very much in detail, right? You have already know 4 immaterial Brahma words. Okay, next one, number 7, boundless consciousness, or infinite consciousness. 7. Infinite consciousness also immaterial rounds. Similarly, number 8, nothingness, they also immaterial rounds. The nether perception, non-perception, they also immaterial rounds. So that means if we summarize every single life in 32 rounds, they are called Sadavasa, 9 abode all beings. So when we talk about 7 stations of consciousness, Vijnana Titi, we are mentioned exclude Asanya Satta and nether perception or non-perception. Altogether we call Sadavasa. 7 Vijnana Titi. So these are the ground for fear. So that means these are the object of fear, we can say, right? By taking all the things as object, we may have fear. That's why not all types of fear are called Vajnana. By taking any of these things as an object, when fear arises, we can say Vajnana in Vipassana. So that is why we have already mentioned present, past, future, or any life, or any types of nama rupas, they are anicca, dukkha, anatta. Okay, now we have to move the last part of today's Dhamma talk. Okay, now, this is inside where one perceives formation as a fearful. It has two aspects. One, nimitta, the sign of past, present, future conditions, phenomena. So this also we can say nama rupas. So pavata, the occurrence or existence in material and immaterial realms. So here we have many different other explanations. In this case, we may have many different contemplations. For example, okay, when we are going to discern Namarupa as anicca, dukkha, anatta, for example, right? Now, sometimes we may see only past as anicca, dukkha, anatta, sometimes present, sometimes future, sometimes internal, sometimes external, sometimes only nama, sometimes only rupa. We got to choose clearer one in this part. Now, number two, pavata, the occurrence or existence in material and immaterial realms, we call pavata. So, yeah, when contemplating impermanence, one see nimitta as a fearful. Nimitta means present, past, future, conditional phenomena as anicca. Sorry, that means as a fearful. When contemplating suffering, one see pavata as a fearful. So dukkha, right? Pavata means occurrence or existence in material and immaterial realms. So these are the conditions we have to start contemplating as anicca, dukkha, anatta. Okay, on the last one, when contemplating non-self, one see both nimitta and pavata as fearful. Okay, one more thing here, right? Here in the case of 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐻, it will appear naturally. We don't need to create anything. So sometimes you may ask why, right? Don't ask why, it's a nature. They will arise naturally. We don't have any special answer for why in this part of practice. Okay, briefly, when we are practicing in Paṭipadāñāṇa also, as we mentioned before, for example, rupa is anicca. After that, insanity also anicca. As we mentioned before, it must only perishing stage. Okay, rupas also perishing anicca. Instant knowledge also perishing anicca. Rupa also perishing dukkha. Instant knowledge also perishing dukkha. Rupa also perishing anatta. Instant knowledge also perishing anatta. We can do like this. We can also understand the same nama, fabricated method, prayer-based method, elements method, depending on originations, any method. As we mentioned in 𝐵𝐴NGA, we may have the same contemplation. Here it doesn't mention how to contemplate, right? It just mentions how your mind will reflect or recall, how it will appear in your mind. That's why we don't have any special practice for 𝐵𝐴NGA. We can use the same method as we have mentioned in 𝐵𝐴NGA. Okay, so I will stop here. May you all be able to practice 3 trainings, and may you all be able to realize final cessation and not suffering.
Thank you, Sayadaw. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sayadaw, may we proceed with the Q&A session?
Okay.
The first question, Vandami Sayadaw, what deeper understanding arises when one sees even inside consciousness?
Inside consciousness. Actually, previous Dhamma talk, we have already mentioned inside knowledge also anicca, right? That one. Actually, we can also have attachment to inside knowledge. When we have very sharp inside knowledge. Right? We can also have already mentioned something in impurity of inside knowledge before, right? So if we can know both are impermanent, for example, Namarupa also impermanent, anicca, also inside also impermanent, anicca, for example, right? We have this kind of understanding. Of course, then we have deeper level of insight naturally, right? We're gonna say why or how, right? It will be natural. The next one.
Question to Vandamisyado. Question to Vandamisyado. In the story, Sayadaw told about the meditators climbing up the mountains. Were there some who had not yet attained jhana? If so, why did they dare to throw away the staircase? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Actually, they believe they can attain path and first knowledge within 7 days, right? That is why they remove the staircase. This is a, we can say, power of Paṭipadāñāṇa. When they, sorry, power of Paṭipadāñāṇa. When they have Paṭipadāñāṇa, they believe their ability, right? Even they don't care about their life. That's why they do like this.
Question 3. Vandamisyado, how does Sunyata-nupassana, contemplation of voidness, safeguard against subtle self-view, ataditi? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
One more thing here, right? We have already mentioned the nature of anatta before. You may remember this one. When we talk about anatta, Sami, Nivasi, Karaka, Vedaka, right? That one, right? So, if we know the nature of anatta, there's no atta, no sub-view, no attaditi. So that is actually the nature of anatta. Okay? That's why when we know anatta, no atta anymore. That's why this is a we safeguard against sub-view, right? This one.
礼敬西亚多，在幻灭随观智的阶段，禅修者会具足全部8种利益与功德，还是仅仅出现其中的一部分？这些利益与功德是按次第逐步而升起的吗？当一位禅修者完全具足8种利益与功德时，他还能继续住在世间吗？还能与家人一起过在家的生活吗？萨度萨度萨度。
Okay. Okay, in this kind of case, it's possible. Even Sarabhana can live with the family, right? But the main thing is they may not have that much attachment to the family. This is the different conditions. Okay. The next one.
礼敬西亚多7种随观：无常、苦、无我、厌离、离欲、灭、舍离，在内观修行中是如何层层递进的？萨度萨度萨度。
Actually, we have already mentioned this Anupassana before, right? So that means if you are practicing all of them naturally, no, not quite clear, right? What is that? Practicing? Okay. 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 Sure. Actually, we have already mentioned all the steps before, right? Even, okay, when we, just go back to the first part, right? When we talk about Sarasana Jnana, okay, we still say Arinava Nupassana, for example, right? So at that time, we have already mentioned many things about Asubha, meditation, and many other things, right? So another thing is that we have already mentioned for the Nibbana also later we have, sorry, Nibbana we have to explain later. Because this one's not yet ready now, right? Because we have to start with, now we just finished Payanjana, there will be Adinavanyana, after that we have to move next one, right? So that means we have to go step by step, systematically, okay?
Vanamisado, for the 8 qualities of Bahangana, do they only appear when the yogi is contemplating the perishing of Namarupa and Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta during meditation? Or do the qualities also maintain throughout the time, even when this yogi is not meditating? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, so that means when they are really meditating, they may have this kind of quality. Of course, if they don't practice very long time, they may not have that kind of quality anymore, right? This one.
Vanamisado, what does the simile of the barber and the mirage reveal about the way a meditator should look at the world? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. So that means mirage, right? Mirage is mostly fake one, not real, right? Similarly, bhava. Bhava is a little bit easier example because if you see in the rain, I'm not sure. You can see raining in your area or not, I'm not sure, right? In Singapore, it's very, that means you can see raining frequently, but you're gonna see the bhava easily also, right? And the main thing is, now in power, we are now also rain, I have to use earpiece now, right? That means very heavy rain, there's a bhava, right? They will burst into pieces. And that means they will arise and perish very quickly. Right? This is the main simile. So mirage is cheating, not real. It looks like a water, but not really water. Okay? This is just an example. If this body also the same, it's like a bubble, it rise and perish very rapidly. Within seconds, within less than seconds, right? It will rise and perish very rapidly because the Namarupas are very rapid. That's good, right? That's why it will rise and perish. This is called like a bubble. The mirror also cheating. We see this body as a solid one, in reality made of particles, like a mirage. Okay, so that means we should see this body as mirage or as a bubble. That means they are cheating, also rapidly rising and perishing.
已经西亚多，请问西亚多8种功德中，哪一种对日常修行最具转化力？萨度萨度萨度。
It has a quality mean. All qualities are actually important, right? Actually, one more thing, right? When we have achieved any special quality, all the qualities are really important, really useful for daily practice, right? So that means you may have all of the 8 when you are practicing very diligently, when you reach that kind of level. Okay.
Vanamisado, can say temporary momentary cessation is momentary nibbana?
We cannot say. Nibbana is we cannot say momentary, right? This is cessation or namarupa, not nibbana.
The next one, can someone attain an arahant if they are not Theravada? And if they not Theravada practitioner, if practice Vipassana, can they attain Vipassana insights?
Okay, one more thing. Although they are non-Buddhists or non-Theravada, right? If they don't have a wrong view, is it possible? If they have wrong view, they cannot.
Next, what is the difference of someone keep 5 or 8 precepts when do dana? Which will give best results?
Okay. In this case, we have to understand a few conditions. For example, donor side and receiver side, right? If donor is a pure immorality, Of course, this is his side is very pure. Similarly, the receiver is pure in morality, or the two side pure. This is more beneficial. Okay? So if 5 precepts, or we can say pure, 8 precepts is purer. So that means it depends on receiver. There can be different results also, right? For example, 5 precepts, but pure receiver. 8 precepts, impure receiver. Different result, right? It depends on purity of both parties, receiver and donors. Okay.
Next, please, Sayadaw, elaborate more what it means of very pure livelihood and example.
Okay. So for Buddhist community, for example, selling alcohol, beer or wine or any intoxicant, this is a wrong livelihood. Okay. Similarly, meat, fish, animal, human trafficking, weapon, poison, all these type of trading are pure. They are wrong livelihoods. So for bhikkhu, we have more than that. For example, fortune telling, that kind of thing also wrong livelihoods. Not only that, like giving flower and fruit to devotees to make a friend or to have a good relationship, right? That kind of thing also wrong livelihood. This is for bhikkhu, right? So now, okay, some tradition they also give charm to devotees, right? It's also wrong livelihood. This is just example. If what about pure livelihoods? I already mentioned wrong livelihoods. If we avoid all the wrong livelihood, this is also pure livelihood. Okay? So another thing is that we have 4 wrong speech, 3 wrong actions. Without doing all the wrong speech and wrong action, if we earn money, this is right livelihood, pure livelihood. If we summarize, not harming anybody, if we do our own livelihoods, this is pure livelihood.
Thank you, Sayadaw. If someone still have dreams and fear and has yet attained Arahant, is it right? Same or no mental process according to Abhidhamma? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. So that means if somebody has a fear, he is not yet anagami, even anagami, yeah, not yet attained anagami. Or the dream, of course. Anagami may have dream, but Arhat may not have a dream because they have only pure Bhavanga mind state. So that means we're gonna say say or no mental process, right? We cannot say say or mental process. This means they have only Bhavanga mind state when they are sleeping for Arhat or Buddha or Vajika Buddha. Next one. Next one. Oh, nice. It can be many, it can be long, it depends, right? So one more thing, I have to elaborate a few more. I haven't talked about this one before. After Panganyana, okay? After Panganyana, if you are instantly become very sharp and very strong, within a few seconds you can take part in future knowledge. Within a few hours you can take part in future knowledge. Within a few days you can take part in future knowledge. That is why it depends on personality, okay? So some people, they are not very skillful, then they are not very mature, then they will remain in Bhayanyana very long time, possible. For some people, only short time, they take part in future knowledge easily. It's also possible. It depends on personality, right? Next one. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. If you are not vehicle, actually they must attain as the concentration. As a foundation, they must start with 4-element meditation, right? 4-element meditation can be two sides, samatha and vipassana. So when you start descending body to body part, when you are descending 4 elements and all over the body at that time is a samatha. Gradually, when you have very strong inside knowledge, so very strong concentration, outside concentration, you can proceed descending rupa kalapas, also 4 elements in the rupa kalapas. At that time, we can say starting point of vipassana.
Yes, Zyado, there are no more questions. Shall we proceed to close today's session? Oh, sorry,
Okay.
sorry,
One more.
Zyado, there's one more. Vanami Zyado, if someone criticizes meditator who is practicing this stage, will this bad karma be very strong? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Of course, criticizing is not really very good thing to do, right? So one more thing, if somebody is very bad, so you criticize, if you don't believe, in this case, it will be something. Another thing is, if he's a really very good person, but because of your bad mind, if you criticize, it can be different condition, right? Okay, one more thing. If we say briefly, in this case, it depends on how strong your defilements. That can be different results. Okay? This one. And the Vietnamese question. Vietnamese question. Okay. No more.
Okay, dear Zyado, there are no more questions. Shall we proceed to close today's session?
Okay.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Zyado, thank you very much for your teachings today, and thank you, our interpreter Bandes, for the translations. May we invite Zyado to lead us in making aspirations and sharing of merits. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Itavatacha amehi sambadam bunya sambadam sabbe deva numodandu sabbe bhuta numodandu sabbe satta numodandu sabba sambati siriya idame nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo idame nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo idame nyatinam hotu sukhita hontu idame bunyam asawakaya waham hotu idame bunyam Nibbanasa Achiyo Hodu Mama Bunya Bhagam Sabasatanam Pajemi Sabe Me Samam Bunya Bhagam Labandu Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.
Thank you, Zyado, and everyone for your time and participation. Till we meet on next Saturday, may all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.